Typical countermeasures to doom scrolling involve blocking apps, setting timers, or some form of self loathing. But if these methods worked effectively for most people, then uncontrolled scrolling would have been a thing of the past, which is clearly not the case. The missing piece to solve this problem might lie in another extremely prevalent internet phenomenon, rabbit holes, which, curiously enough, counteract doom scrolling almost perfectly. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, rabbit holes have a negative reputation due to their association with conspiracy theories or dark and disturbing pockets of history. But we all use rabbit holes for some of the most fun and effective educational experiences on the internet. Say that you once watched a video on the Battle of Actium out of curiosity, and soon after, you find yourself clicking through recommended videos for hours. Before long, you're verifying the things that you learn, watching documentaries on the Internet Archive, reading the obscurest of books on Project Gutenberg, and even delving into the hellhole of discussion forums. And over the course of the next few days, you end up learning more about Roman history than perhaps anything that you've ever learned. This was a rather common example, but the same goes for any rabbit hole. Animation techniques, the history of the Silicon Valley, comparative mythology, the late 20th century politics of nuclear power, the kind of disproportionate knowledge that captivates the people you speak with, helps you get a new hobby, or even makes you switch careers, never comes from sticking to a structured tutorial. You must necessarily venture out into the wilderness of the interwebs. Unlike doom scrolling, which is inherently negative, rabbit holes are neutral in nature. Whether they're used to satiate curiosity or to reinforce delusional thinking, that is totally up to the person doing it. The remarkable effectiveness of rabbit holes for both learning new things and countering the doom scroll can be attributed to how natural they are to our cognitive functioning. Humans understand the world in narratives. We make sense of information through stories, which is why the best books and the best teachers usually anchor their lessons in historical context or relatable life experiences to make the subject more engaging. Rabbit holes leverage this tendency even more effectively. You ask a question on the internet, and when you get an answer, another question pops up. This pattern, repeated over time, is the engine of a rabbit hole. You're not seeking this knowledge to secure a job or to gain admission to your dream school. You're simply pursuing your intrinsic curiosity question by question. This intrinsic motivation explains why rabbit holes can counter doom scrolling so effectively. You're fighting instant gratification with instant gratification. You're not using willpower or trying to trick yourself into becoming disciplined. And as you gain answers to your chain of questions, you are creating a story in your head that helps you make sense of an entire domain of knowledge. The information points here are connected not only as parts of a broader story, but a story that is uniquely your perspective. That's the reason why you don't tend to forget what you learn from rabbit holes. Cognitive science refers to this as the generation effect. Knowledge actively generated or discovered through personal effort is remembered far more effectively than passively consumed information. So, doom scrolling is passive and compulsive. It brings together two very sinister factors. Firstly, the emotional triggers that make you doom scroll are painful, like fear of missing out or disturbing thoughts that you want to distract yourself from. Secondly, you're always unconsciously aware of the fact that the platform is using your emotional vulnerability to farm engagement. This is why scrolling always leaves you feeling violated. Rabbit holing leaves you with a different feeling. You are the one seeking information, because after a point, you're not letting any retention algorithm decide what you see next. You're consistently switching between sites and feeds and looking things up by yourself. Consequently, there is a sense of agency in the person who dives into a rabbit hole. Doom scrolling invariably leads to burnout. Whether you're scrolling through microblogging sites that indulge your anxiety or through shorts and reels that stimulate you, the end result is your brain getting fatigued. It's because every time you scroll down to the next item, your brain is switching context from one topic to another. And each time, due to its narrative nature, your brain is trying to extrapolate a story out of that single piece of information on your screen. Rabbit holes, on the other hand, leave you intellectually vitalized. Firstly, you're not switching contexts. No matter how wildly you're branching off into different directions, your brain knows that you're context bound to a specific topic. Secondly, rabbit holes never make you consume fleeting information. Even in political rabbit holes, you're not consuming current affairs, but mostly a version of history. Regardless of what you're exploring, rabbit holes expose you to a wide range of ideas and perspectives in a short time. This cross pollination of diverse yet context bound perspectives stimulates creativity by prompting your brain to come up with its own original ideas that can then be added to the story. And on top of that, your mind is now forming strong opinions on a topic that you probably never cared about before. Whenever that happens, you always feel a surge of energy because now you want to share all this stuff with someone, or maybe you want to be a contrarian at the dinner table, or do something about it. In short, rabbit holes intellectually invigorate you. They leave you excited, literally the opposite of burnout. I've always observed that one of the advantages that computer science students have over other engineering disciplines is that their subject allows for rabbit hole driven learning very seamlessly. Even when you're making the weirdest, most obscure, most insane projects for fun, almost any information that you need is out there on the internet somewhere, legally available for free. You just need to go on the journey to find it. And not only that, since you're dealing with logical artifacts, not physical ones, most of what you learn, you can experiment with them on your existing laptop. And on top of this being fun, it is also more useful for your career than attending most lectures, which take a semester to teach you something obsolete, which you could have learned in 2 weeks. All of this come together to make rabbit holing a serious activity that many from this discipline carry with them for the rest of their lives. The reason why we see so many modern polymathic thinkers having a background in computer science is not because there is something special about the people who take up this subject, but because by an accident of nature, their subject allows for the development of this habit of serious rabbit holing. This habit is a shared characteristic among all the polymathic thinkers of the world, no matter which field they come from or which culture they come from. Whether they do it analog or they do it on the internet, they do not consider the rabbit holes they fall into as something trivial, like some stimulating pastime, but as something serious and inherently beneficial. Serious rabbit holing teaches you how to formulate questions, recognize compound questions and break them into smaller ones, and how to be resourceful in seeking out answers and judging the validity of those answers. It leads to the development of intellectual self reliance, which forms the bedrock for a healthy and expansive digital experience. Like physical adventures, intellectual adventures also come with their own risks. There are two principles that I use to avert them. Firstly, never lower yourself to the level of the forum. While rabbit holing, always treat a forum like a town you're passing by. The people or the bots that participate in your corner of social media are not your journey companions, but townsmen at a checkpoint on the road. If they say something provocative, you don't need to respond. Neither do you need to gain status in that community by trying to post bangers. You will get trapped in this town if you lower yourself to the level of the people in these forums. You're not here to settle. Remember, many of the regulars in these forums were once curious adventurers like yourself who became entangled in these echo chambers. Stay focused, learn what you came for, and then continue on your journey. Secondly, trust your own rationality. Sometimes the answer to a question makes us feel uncomfortable, not because it is unexpected or unconventional, but because it aligns with the views of the people that we consider to be cringe or delusional. The unsettling possibility that the worldview of a person we dislike can make sense to us is a near primal human fear. But if you let this interrupt your curiosity, your rabbit hole will come to an end prematurely. To overcome this, have faith in your rationality. You're a human. If you pick up delusions and irrational arguments, you will recognize them and discard them over time. Sometimes going through a delusional phase and overcoming it is exactly what's needed for your growth as a thinker. Over time, these journeys might lead to unexpected outcomes. What begins as casually watching a keyboard review video might ultimately lead you to launch your own custom keyboard startup. What begins as a casual encounter with a popular history book could inspire you to formally pursue anthropology and discover your life's work. What begins as a fascination with the Japanese manga industry could end with you creating a manga publishing marketplace for indie artists as a fun side project that in turn lands you a fulfilling role at a leading media tech company. Of course, not every rabbit hole is going to reshape your career or lead to life changing opportunities like these. Many will simply introduce you to a new hobby or leave you with fascinating knowledge whose full value will become clear only later in your life. Yet, even in these cases, you'll be replacing countless hours of mindless scrolling with something that meaningfully enriches you. Thanks for listening.